Hello, in this broadcast, the news from the television company Ostankino. The main event of the day is the second currency upheaval on the Moscow exchange in only 2 days. The difference, however, is that when the 11th of October, the ruble collapsed, observers justifiably named it Black Tuesday. Today, at least, for our currency can be called Bright Thursday. Today, the dollar on its part declined just as unnaturally and sharply by end of the trading session, which continued for several hours. The dollar declined by 742 rubles compared to yesterday's indicator, and now the rate is 2,994 rubles for $1 American dollar. In other words, after the upheavals of the last few days, the rate has returned to the level at the end of last week. Such landslide declines in the rate of the dollar, many specialists feel, is logical because after imposing new rules on the trading on the currency exchange, the central bank has managed to reduce the speculative demand for currency. It's not excluded that in tomorrow's trading, the rate of the American dollar again can decline. By instructions of the Prime Minister, Viktor Chernomyrdin, appointed as temporary acting Minister of Finances of Russia, is the 33-year-old Andrei Vavilov, previously the first deputy head of the Russian Financial Department. The President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, has instructed the chairman of the State Committee on investigating the reasons for the severe destabilization on the financial market, the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia, Oleg Lobov, to undertake measures to expose the reasons for the decline of the rate in the ruble and develop proposals to stabilize the situation. As the press service of the President stated, the head of state today issued a decree on the State Commission and ratified its membership. The document obliges Oleg Lobov to daily report to the President of Russia about the progress of its work. The catastrophic decline in the rate of the ruble at the currency exchange is, I quote, not so much a consequence of certain economic disorders as a result of a carefully planned social political action, unquote. This is the opinion of the Deputy Chairman of the Federative Council, Valerian Viktorov, who represents the higher chamber of parliament in the State Commission, headed by the Secretary of the Security Council, Oleg Lobov. Today at the meeting with journalists, Valerian Viktorov emphasized that the culprits of the landslide collapse of the value of the ruble are those politicians who are interested in discrediting the government and would like to take advantage of the situation to make changes in the staff of the cabinet and attempt to raise the question about early presidential elections. According to Valerian Viktorov, the Commission also knows which commercial banks caused panic on the currency exchange and the fact that behind these banks there are known political forces. Commenting on the situation with Russian money, today was the chairman of the Federative Council, Vladimir Shumeyko. He feels that behind all of this there are political forces and the main blow is aimed at the president and government. Such a statement the Speaker of the Higher Chamber made in the Kremlin, where he arrived together with his deputies, Ramazan Abdullah-Tipov and Valerian Viktorov, to meet with Boris Yeltsin. Opening the meeting, the president noted that he meets with members of the Federative Council far more frequently than with deputies of the State Duma. Today's meeting is a regularly planned one, and apart from the progress of the legislative process, they discussed the questions of electing judges for the Constitutional Court and a candidate for the still vacant post of Prosecutor General. Boris Yeltsin feels the system of the two-chamber parliament embedded in the Constitution justifies itself. At the same time, the president is not overly confident that in the deputies' work everything will be smooth, and in his opinion, the performance of the chamber is not without defects. I always respond when I'm addressed about this issue. Name me a country where the parliament works without shortcomings. And no one can name a single country. Therefore, certain shortcomings, just as in any family or any organization, or as in any structure, they do exist and they will be. Vladimir Shumeyko said that today Russia mostly needs laws which develop the economy. The chairman of the Central Bank of Russia, Viktor Gerashchenko, for now sees no basis to willingly resign. This he stated today in an interview to journalists after speaking at the session of the Budget Committee in the State Duma. The parliamentary committee, behind closed doors, examined the notification of the President Boris Yeltsin about dismissing Viktor Gerashchenko. However, a decision was not adopted. The session of the committee will be continued Monday morning. Despite expectations, the scandalous decline of the ruble was not discussed at the session of government today. Evidently, members of the cabinet were satisfied with the measures which were undertaken. In the agenda, there's only one question: the package of documents on taxation. Tax reform was expected without doubt, for the excessive collections reaching 85% of profit. However, the package submitted by the Ministry of Finances, in the unanimous opinion of the members of government, on the contrary, will only worsen the situation. According to certain assessments, the tax burden will increase by 11 trillion rubles. Among statutes especially criticized were the liquidation of the reduced discounted taxation in the spheres of education, culture, and social insurance, curtailing deposits into non-budgetary funds, which in essence are sources of financing for highly scientific developments, the introduction of revenue taxes for military personnel, and taxation of interest on population's savings accounts. At the session, it was indicated that the ministry is not capable of collecting due taxes, and according to the tax department, the budget is short 11.5 trillion rubles in tax payments, and it is attempting to take the easy way out through citizens and budget organizations. In short, in the opinion of those who spoke, the Ministry of Finances is pursuing a seeming benefit, not calculating possible consequences. As a result, the law will fall through in the Duma, and with it together the government will fall through. On this sad note, a break was called until 6 p.m. The draft law on taxes was not adopted. However, Alexis Kivets said that the time limit to submit the package to the Duma is not extended. The material will be submitted Monday. Therefore, the end of the week for the Ministry of Finances and for the government will be tense. As Interfox reported through the head of the press service of the government, Valentin Sergeyev, at the evening session was chaired by the Vice Premier Alexander Shokhin, who spoke over the phone with the head of cabinet, Viktor Chernomyrdin, who is in Sochi. The Premier was interested in the flow of discussion and gave several bits of practical advice, noting that the government still has time until Tuesday next week for finishing work and submitting for ratification to the State Duma the normative acts to perfect the tax system. Valentin Sergeyev categorically refuted the interpretation of the disputes at the session of the government by certain mass media as a split in the cabinet of ministers. At the evening part of the session, after discussion, the members of government began meticulously to work through the concrete postures of the draft laws. This work will be continued until the beginning of next week. The government will not have the weekend off, concluded the head of the press service. Because of unrestrained jumps in the rate of the ruble in relation to the dollar, the Russian citizen currently has regressed into melancholy and overwhelming confusion. He's torn by the Hamlet-like question, to buy or not to buy. Although essential goods are still being purchased without commentary, just as this Russian ice cream, which during the last days didn't change much in price, but the shelves with various imported goods are passed by like exhibits. Prices jump several times a day, and they lead to frustration and bitterness. Today by evening, true, prices did decrease by almost 20%, however, far from all of them. Although in exchange points profit is still being gleaned, many traders are now left in the wings. Even certain major wholesale firms are lying low. Do the jumps in prices affect you? Of course they do. Several times a day we have to recalculate prices. People are disturbed. The people are not buying because these jumps affect the people first. The population is not so concerned about the secret motives or political sabotage or provocations, nor are they concerned with economic explanations and backgrounds of the catastrophic processes. Simply, people want stability in the economy, in the rate of the ruble, in politics, and, of course, first of all, in prices. An accessible price for bread? This question is no longer a moral one today, but a political one. This was heard at the conference of the Russian Union of Bakers. It, for the first time in the history of the baking industry in Russia, convened in Moscow. Many factors are not developing well for Russia. This year, the wheat harvest was under average, and according to the Ministry of Agricultural Industry, the lacking 8 million tons of wheat will have to be purchased on the foreign market, and their prices are also climbing. The equipment of the baking plants is worn down by 60%. To find a solution through small private bakeries is impeded by the same crisis, the credit financial system. Meanwhile, bread in Russia remains the basic staple food, although its consumption has decreased by almost 2 times, 100 kilograms per year on an average per person. My opinion is that this year the government will have to resume regulating prices on bread because, considering the high cost of grain on the foreign market, the price on bread could be extremely high. Therefore, subsidies will be necessary. In the adverse scenario, the price on bread will be equivalent to a delicacy price. 26% of Russian citizens are forced to live on revenues below even 100,000 rubles per month. This is approximately 38.5 million people from the overall number of 148.5 million citizens of Russia. Their monetary revenues reach only 40% of the average salary rate, the size of which in the first half of the current year was 207,500 rubles. These facts were presented by the Ministry of Labor of Russia. The fans of Leon Golubkov and Marina Sergeyevna, the mascots of the advertising program of MMM, celebrate today. The president of the MMM joint share company, Sergei Mavrodi, was released from solitary confinement. Several hundreds of people participated in the rally near the office MMM building dedicated to the event. The decision of the Preobrazhensk district court about altering the punitive measure against Mavrodi to house arrest was completely unexpected even by his attorneys. We'll remind you, Mavrodi is accused of evading taxes in the amount of 49 billion rubles. Evidently in prison, the president of MMM decided to seriously launch into politics. As is known, he's registered as a candidate for the State Duma in the Mutishinsk district. His supporters have begun collecting petitions for re-elections of the president of Russia. And this is only at the beginning, they said at the rally. Shareholders expect that upon Mavrodi's release, the sale and purchase of shares will begin and they will retrieve their money. And no one will convince them that in the financial pyramid game, there will always be losers. The Ministry of Healthcare and Medical Industry of Russia offers to establish control over prices for vital medications. These and other proposals of the department are included in the federal law on medications. That is the project of that law, which in the near future will be submitted for examination to deputies of the State Duma. In the opinion of Mikhail Sapovsky, the first deputy minister, the accent in providing Russians with medications should be shifted from the center to territories because dispensing agents there have more difficulty in obtaining preparations and establishing a ceiling for vital medications prices. Meanwhile, in Moscow, an international exhibit, Pharmacy 94, is underway. Such an exhibit is a first for us. Displayed here is almost everything produced by the world pharmaceutical industry, medications from 120 of the largest firms. But for us, the exhibit is an opportunity to speak about the problem of our access to medication. Today's pharmacies are no longer full of empty shelves, and yet today there's a shortage of vital substances, oncological, narcotic substances, medications for asthma, insulins, and many other things. Today, unfortunately, the enormous debts of the Ministry of Healthcare don't permit the pharmaceutical services to deal in those volumes of medications which are necessary. Healthcare constantly delays payments to pharmacies for free discounted prescriptions, and these are the usual vital medications. Funds allotted for drugs are spent now not on the most vital, but on more expensive items. It seems that we forget we cannot approach the purchase of medications only from the position of a market economy. Today, the president of Northern Ossetia, Akhsarbek Galazov, signed a decree to institute a state holiday, the Day of the Republic Northern Ossetia. The decree was adopted in celebration of the 220th anniversary of Ossetia joining Russia, which occurs on the 14th of October. This day also, the 210th anniversary, is celebrated after the city of Vladikavkaz was founded. President Boris Yeltsin congratulated the citizens of Northern Ossetia with the memorable dates. The search operation of Russian peacekeeping forces in the Kadur Gulch of Abkhazia has been completed. Its results were summarized today in the village Azhara by the commander of the peacekeeping forces of Russia, General Vasily Yakushev. In detail, he informed the Minister of Defense of Georgia, General Nadibaidze, and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Armed Forces of Abkhazia, General Atbar, about the results. And the results are such. Search teams conducted reconnaissance of the site and found 10 units of unaccounted military technology and an enormous quantity of ammunition. Some of the ammunition has already been liquidated. The rest is under the guard of peacekeeping forces in the village Azhara. According to General Yakushev, the operation was successful. In Chechnya, near the enclave Gehi, 12 kilometers from Grozny, today an armed clash occurred between the opposition forces and units of the supporters of Jahar Dudayev. As Itartas was told, citing the press center of the interim council, at 6:30 in the morning, units of Jahar Dudayev, numbering 40 persons, attacked the post of the opposition forces near the village Gehi in the Urus-Martan region. As a result of the brief clash, the group of attackers was dispersed and partially annihilated. Later, units of the opposition surrounded and completely wiped out the remaining Jihad-Dadaev units. By 12 o'clock midday, the operation was concluded. Among the troops of the Interim Council, 5 people have been killed and 3 injured. This information of the Interim Council was denied by official Grozny. According to its version, indeed, in that region, in the early morning, there was crossfire, during which both sides lost 5 people each. Grozny authorities, however, assert that this clash was of a local nature, which government forces of Chechnya had no relation to. Sentenced to the highest form of punishment, capital punishment, at the proceedings in the Stavropol area were the 3 Chechen terrorists, Usmanov, Nanagaev, and Dovtukaev, who, in mineral waters in the end of July, took 37 passengers of a commuter bus hostage en route from Pitigorsk, the village Sovietskaya. During the operation to free them, 4 hostages died and 6 passengers and 5 militaries, servicemen of the Special Designation Units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Russia, received injuries and burns of various degrees. The law enforcement organs of Russia arrived and are holding in custody one of the direct participants of the murder of the 9th of October of the first Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs of Udmurtia, Nikolai Petrevshchikov, and his family. The criminal confessed today. Iturtas says that currently the names and surnames of all participants in the crime have been established and measures are being taken to detain them. In Moscow today, the Prime Minister of Italy, Silvio Berlusconi, arrived on an official visit. The welcome ceremony at the Vnukovo airport was in compliance with state protocol. We'll remind you, Silvio Berlusconi took office in March as a result of a decisive victory at the elections. He is a novice in politics, but he's broadly known in the business world. One of the richest people on the continent, he owns one of Europe's largest media conglomerates, and his wife, Veronica, is a former actress. Both sides connect hopes with this visit to strengthen ties between the two countries. During the visit, the Russian-Italian agreement will be signed on friendship and cooperation. In the international sphere, an exchange of views will take place on European security and cooperation within the framework of the ECSC, NATO, and the G7 and other issues. And yet the focal topic will be discussion of mutual trade economic relations. Italy is the second largest after Germany trade partner of Russia and second also after Germany creditor. Rome is concerned with the growing deficit in the mutual trade, which last year reached almost $2 billion in Russia's favor. At the dialogues, they will discuss projects in the areas of transportation, communications, cooperation in the oil-gas sector. And in view of the coming November Naples conference on organized crime, evidently this topic will be touched on as well. As is planned, this evening a private dinner will be held for Silvio Berlusconi and his wife by Boris Yeltsin and his wife. Tomorrow in the Kremlin, the Italian premier will be hosted by the President of Russia, and the Russian-Italian dialogues will be held. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Andrei Kozyrev, arrived today in Baghdad. As was learned, he will conduct talks on issues related to the crisis in the Persian Gulf precipitated by the deployment of Iraqi forces near the Kuwaiti border. According to Iturtas, there were no details regarding the plans of the Russian minister announced upon his arrival in the Iraqi capital. After Iraq, Andrei Kozyrev will visit Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, and later will go to New York, where in the UN also the situation in the Persian Gulf will be discussed. Judging from the development in the Persian Gulf, probably a repeat of the Desert Storm of the 1991 issue will not occur. This is understood already in Washington and in Moscow, and the leader of the Iraqi people himself realized that now there's no sense to be vulnerable. Having played on the nerves of Kuwait and the entire world community, Saddam Hussein again attempted to show off, at least to his own people, that he is capable of defending the entire Muslim East against the penetration of American and Western sentiments. However, as a result, this could lead to entrenching the American military presence in this region, which is already becoming key in the world. And the issue here is not so much about the strategic plans of each side as the ideas of a purely geopolitical nature. And Iraq would like to join in this game, especially now when Moscow seriously expressing its interests in the Transcaucasus almost found itself deprived of Caspian oil when the influence of Turkey noticeably expanded, not only because of brotherly friendship with Azerbaijan. It seems the main aim of the visit of the Minister of Foreign Affairs to the region, of course, will be the joint quest to return the entire process into a purely political format and simultaneously to achieve such agreements with Baghdad, according to which Moscow can return the Iraq debt, $7 billion. Now, this money would not be superfluous at all for Russia. Militarized groups of Protestants in Northern Ireland announced a general ceasefire today. It takes effect at midnight. The armed resistance between the Protestants and Catholics had continued in Northern Ireland for 25 years. The Palestinian Movement of Islamic Resistance, Hamas, condemned the statement of the American Secretary of State Christopher in connection with the kidnapping of the Israeli soldier by Islamic gunmen. The head of the American State Department expressed his disturbance over this action and appealed to the PLO leader Arafat with an insistent request to undertake all measures to save the hostage. As is known, Hamas demands from Israeli authorities to release from prison the founder of their movement, Sheikh Maidesin, and other cohorts. If not, the Israeli hostage will be executed this Friday. The laureate of the Nobel Prize for Literature for 1994 is the Japanese writer Kenzaburo Oe. This decision was announced today by the Swedish Academy. Today, when in Haiti it was the dead of night, a special airplane from Miami in Port-au-Prince was boarded by the Cedras family. As always outwardly placid, the former head of the military junta, the General Raul Cedras, was departing for Panama, which provided him and his entourage political asylum. Incidentally, the Olympic calm did not abandon the dictator all the last 3 years after he had seized power in Haiti, overthrowing the lawfully elected President Aristide, and he was completely placated during the last month when, having signed the historical agreement with the former American President Jimmy Carter, he consented to the American invasion. As a result, General Cedras, in essence, found himself under the protection of the powerful northern neighbor, and the fact that the military boys protected him better than his own Tonton Makutas is undisputable. The President Bill Clinton feels proud because of what the American military accomplished in Haiti. Again, the parliament is functioning, and refugees are returning to the country. Saturday, the forcefully deposed President Aristide will return as well. In a word, democracy was reestablished. But in my opinion, with the departure of General Cedras, only another chapter of the Haitian drama has closed. Democracy, which is supported by automatic weapons, cannot exist. And what will happen when these boys from the Marine Infantry leave Haiti, one can only guess. On Monday, as is known, the first official visit of the Queen of Great Britain, Elizabeth II, to Russia will begin. And naturally, any information from that country for us is of special interest. In England, there are many politicians who, upon retiring, enter the business world. The former Speaker of the House of Commons, incidentally the first Speaker of British Parliament who visited the Soviet Union then, Bernard Waverall, returned to the same house of business that he had built himself. His father was the leader of the last strike of London's tailors, and his son, a tailor of highest qualification, evidenced by a thimble, a gift from his mother, so that he would not forget from whence he entered respectable society, more precisely, the Lord's Society. The shop in which we met with its dignified president has a rare list of famous clients. Here they sewed for Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis pop stars, Elton John and Eric Clapton Hollywood stars, and the King Hussein of Jordan. The couturier has a royal coat of arms, permitting it to fill orders for the royal family. Some time ago, before the 1917 revolution, the company, which owned the shop, filled orders for the Russian Tsar's court. The company is considering returning to Russia. The Queen's visit opens the door back. And why not seize the opportunity to ask some personal questions? Because Lord Waverall, for many years, had dealings with the Queen, and today he continues to remain a member of the influential Confidential Council, the Council, which ratifies all the most important state documents which are presented to the Queen. The political experience of the Queen, Lord Waverall noted, exceeds the experience of any politician because, as she once noted herself, she has to deal with 68 prime ministers. And not only with them, people write her much. Personally, she must become involved often in the fate of those people for whom life, for whatever reasons, is extremely hard. Regarding the first truly historical visit of the Queen, Elizabeth II, to Russia, this is probably a turning point in the relations of our countries, noted the former Speaker of the House of Commons, and added, "This is like a visit of reconciliation, healing of old wounds. In view of tomorrow, we should cooperate and not be in opposition." In a moment, you'll hear the sports news from Georgi Sarkisyan. With this, I bid you farewell. Good evening, my friends. In France, the team competitions have begun for table tennis, and both Russian teams at the start have beat their opponents with the same score, 3-0. The women's team beat Australia, the men's team beat the Japanese team. At the major international chess tournament in Buenos Aires, in the first round, Karpov tied with Kamsky, Anand beat Lyubovich, and Judit Polgar beat Shurov. In the eighth qualifying group in the European Soccer Championships, where the Russian team is playing, two more matches ended with a large score. The Scottish team beat the Faroe Islands team 5-1. And the Greek team obliterated on its field the Finnish team. After first time, the hosts were leading 1-0. In the middle of the second time, Batista scores a second goal against the Finns. And in the end of the match, two times Machlos excelled. Especially beautiful was the last goal. The final score is the same as in Moscow, 4-0. Special interest was drawn in the match in Bern between the teams Switzerland and Sweden. After the first time, tie 1-1. Soon after the break, the Swedes moved ahead for the second time. Dahlin scored the goal, but 2 minutes later, his teammate Longkiss scored against his own goalpost, 2-2. Later, during the next 2 minutes, the hosts of the field proved themselves. First, Sforza, and later Kurkilmas, 4-2. In this group, the Turks now have the lead, beating the Iceland team with a score of 5-0. You see the results of the 4 matches of the International Hockey League tournament. I'll note the defeat of the Torpedoes Nizhny Novgorod at the hands of the Army team, 1-5, and Lada by the Saratov Crystal, 2-4. Good evening. The 14th of October, according to the fall calendar, is the Feast of the Protection of the Virgin Mary. Whatever weather falls on that day indicates what winter will bring. Here's what tomorrow brings us, according to the Oceanic Meteorological Center. The cyclone, shifting from the west to the east, is near Kyiv. Therefore, in the Nenetsk Autonomous District in the Republic of Komi in the Volgovetsk area, it's cloudy, windy, with isolated rains and wet snow. Temperature +1 to 6. At the same time, from the north of Norway to the Kola Peninsula, a new cyclone is shifting down, and the connected atmospheric front will pass through Karelia, the Leningrad district, the Baltic countries, and the north of Ukraine. On this territory, cloudy and rainy. In the north, snow is possible. In the middle of the day, the zone of rain will spread to the Pskov, Novgorod, Smolensk, and Bryansk districts. During the day, on the Kola Peninsula and in Karelia, and also in the Arkhangelsk district, 0 +5, in the Baltic countries, +7 to 11. In Belarus and in the north of Ukraine, 9 to 11. In the central and central Chernozem areas, partly cloudy skies with brief rains. In the central area at night, 0 -3, during the day, +4 to 8. On the central Chernozem area, 3 to 4 degrees warmer. On the central Volga, also cloudy and rainy, +9 to 14. The weather of the lower Volga area, the northern Caucasus, the Stavropol and Krasnodar rims, the lower Don and Crimea will be defined by atmospheric fronts. Here, it is partly cloudy with isolated periods of rain, stronger rain on the Black Sea coast. During the day on the lower Don, +17 to 21. On the coast of the Krasnodar rim and in Crimea, +19 to 22. On the south of Ukraine and in Moldova, it's clear and with precipitation, +13 to 15. Beyond the Caucasus, partly cloudy skies during the day, brief torrential rains with temperatures of 22 to 24. In Moscow, partly cloudy skies at night, +1 to 3, with light rains during the day, +5 to 7, without much precipitation. I bid you farewell, and the Moscow Food Bank, despite the rain and cooler weather, hopes that your morning will be pleasant. Goodbye.